Hey everyone, today I'll be explaining the lore and going into the deep and dark mind of one of the most depraved individuals that has become the inspiration for one of the most well-known killer characters that the world has ever seen. Not only in the real world, but the world of cinema and also in the world of DVD. I will focus on the key moments of his lore and give extremely detailed points of his backstory. Here we go. In a game like Dead by Daylight, you have friends and you have foes. You have killers and survivors. And between those two, you have deranged psychopathic murderers, insane and maniacal liquidators, and every other vicious and brutal killer that roams each realm that the entity controls. But there's one killer among them all that enjoys the process of killing and murdering and slicing up the bodies of innocent people much more than the rest of the criminally insane and sadistic monsters that are on the entity's roster. One that is twisted and has no room for any kind of mercy for their victims, as he slices up and cuts while he eats and plays with his sufferer's skin. If you haven't picked up on the clues I've been putting down, I'm talking about the Cannibal, Leatherface. Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27, 1906, and died on July 26, 1984. He's one of the most grotesque and ruthless killers the world has ever seen. Ed and his brother Henry Gein had both parents, but were raised primarily by their mother, Augusta Gein. They were brought up on their 160-acre farm. She was very religious and loved both of her boys very much. She refused to let either one of her boys be around other women because she believed that sex was evil and that women were instruments of the devil. She also kept them busy working on the farm so they could not be around other women. His father, George Gein, who suffered from alcoholism, passed away in 1940, and a few years later, his brother Henry died in 1944. The coroners ruled Henry asphyxiated from smoke inhalation, but his head had bruises that were consistent with being struck. I don't know about you, but that seems pretty suspect to me. It was later diagnosed that because of the type of parenting style his mother raised him by, Ed developed a condition called Oedipus complex, a diagnosis of strong emotional attachment to the parent of the opposite sex. He had strong romantic sexual feelings towards his mother, and being isolated on the farm with her just made those feelings grow even stronger. So maybe Ed became jealous and wanted his mother all to himself, and maybe those bruises to his brother's head were from Ed knocking him out and leaving him to die in the grass fire all alone. Just a thought. What do you think? Ed had called the police, and when they arrived, he led them right to his brother's body. But even though Henry was fighting a grass fire, there was no evidence of any burns on his body. And in 1945, Ed's mother Augusta died from her second stroke, leaving Ed all alone. The inspiration for this killer came from the 1974 movie, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was also based off the real-life events from a case from the 1950s. Saturday, November 16th, 1957, Bernice Warden. She was the owner of a hardware store in Plainfield, Wisconsin. Leaving to start her day, she never would have guessed that her final moments of her life would have been coming to a gory and bitter end. Now imagine you're a deputy sheriff, someone who's supposed to protect the town and the best interests of it, and not knowing there is a sick and twisted mind running around the town in plain sight plotting and thinking how to get away with crimes that only the putrid and toxic can come up with. Well, that's exactly what Frank Warden was, the son of Bernice Warden, as he came home and found out from the owner of the gas station across the street from his mother's hardware store that his mother closed the store early but left the lights on. This struck Frank as odd, and he immediately went over with growing concern to see what was the reason the store was closed. He knew that his mother was going to be at the store all day, so this news was very strange to him. Frank got to the store quickly, securing the scene, and found a trail of blood going out the back door of the hardware store. Not only was his mother missing, but the store truck was gone too. While searching for clues, Ed Gein came to mind as he asked Frank if he was going to be hunting. With the cash register also gone, they thought it was a robbery, but it was much more worse than that. Once the sheriff was there, he checked the record of sales and noticed there was a half gallon of antifreeze that was sold. Frank had then remembered that Ed Gein had stopped by the store the night before, telling Frank that he'd be back in the morning for the antifreeze, also asking if Frank was going to be going hunting. This seemed very odd now. The pieces just put themselves together. Like, why didn't Ed just buy the antifreeze while he was there the night before? The fact the store truck was gone, the store being closed early after his mother told him that she would be there all day, and Ed asking Frank if he would be gone hunting, knowing his mother would be all alone. To me, all signs point to yes. This had Ed Gein written all over it. I'm surprised her son couldn't figure that out. That when Ed Gein asked if Frank was going hunting, that something was up, especially knowing the weird reputation that Ed Gein has. At the age of 7, Ed was introduced to death by watching a pig being slaughtered by his parents, combined with being bullied by classmates at school, and any friends he did make were scared off by his mother. On top of that, he was kept in isolation a lot of the time. Because of this, Ed ended up creating friends that were imaginary. Love from his parents was something that he did not get. Anger was rapidly growing inside of him, and all of these things being taken away from him that a normal child would have. Before long, an angry beast was growing inside of him without him even knowing it. A dark and eerie cloud took over his soul. Depression and rage built up within him. Nowhere for him to release these feelings. As Ed grew older, he couldn't get enough of knowing about the human anatomy, especially the human female. He read books on the human anatomy and Nazi concentration camp where they did experiments. He started grave robbing in 1947. This went on for years, over a decade. He would read the papers to see when there was fresh bodies and dig them up, and usually visit the cemetery when there was a full moon to do this. He'd take parts of the female corpse or the full body, depending on what he wanted. He did many extremely weird things to these decrepit bodies, including using their skin and bones to create household objects like soup bowls, lampshades, chair coverings, and so on. He was so into this dark and twisted lifestyle that he went one step further and would put the organs of these bodies into the fridge so he could eat them later. There was nowhere else for Ed to turn to except to go out and start murdering people because he thought that bodies that were just killed would be better for his collection. Watching from afar, since this insidious monster was a child, all the way up to an adult, and seeing all the monstrosities and vicious acts this sadistic individual inflicted on the world. The ruler of the realms knew it was clear he was the next recruit for the trials. The Ancient One knew he was perfect to go out and fulfill the sinister sins and wicked wishes that fulfilled the Overlord's being with pure enjoyment. The sick and twisted intentions of this new killer, the Cannibal, was exactly what the entity was looking for. As he watched down upon Leatherface in a heated moment while he was in his last days on Earth, he was trying to kill another victim, but this time the survivor had gotten away. Before Leatherface could think or have any time to readjust to what was happening, feeling of cold dread creeped along his skin, reverberation of a greater fear, more dark and evil than anything from his world could ever do to him, was lurking close by in the shadows. Then, a terrifying comfort enveloped him, leaving him with a familiar fear, like if he disappointed his mother. A dense fog then took him, and he was now in a place where he knew what he had to do. He was given a new life to live out, what truly was within him. Outsiders would come, but the ruthless aggression would overtake him, slaughtering each one of those outsiders that didn't belong, using his weapon of violence that would saw through his victim's skin, offering up bellowing and blood-curdling screams. And when all was said and done, and the bodies hit the ground, a hook would appear, a reminder of his old world, where it all started with Kirk at the farmhouse. He was happy, and the entity was pleased. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. That's gonna do it for this video. See you in the next one.